Yeah. Okay, the Jentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Jentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Jentry Podcast. Today, we have an incredible guest. I'm your host, Jonathan Mason, but more importantly, we have Brandon Johnson, who is a council member for Wichita, Kansas, representing District 1. And this is a great one. He has been pounding the pavement for years around economic development, youth employment. He's run nonprofits. And candidly, I was saying, if we could just recreate the conversation that we had a couple weeks back, that would be great because he is a wealth of knowledge. But before we get into that, Brandon, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm great. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here. Wichita's good. We're actually in the 60s today, so which is a shock for December. So everything's good. The sun is out. Life is good.
No, I can appreciate that. And sidebar, we haven't spoke about. My wife is a Jayhawk, so I got love for Kansas.
Rock chalk.
But before we get into that, as I always like to start, what is the secret sauce? What makes Wichita the best place to live in the United States?
Well, I've got two answers on that. One is cliche, and that, of course, is our people. But if you come here, you'll see why. Our people are just nice. Everyone cares. I've been to other cities. I won't name them, but when you're walking around, people just kind of focus with their AirPods in and, they don't really acknowledge you. When you come to Wichita, everyone acknowledges you. You'll get a smile. You'll get a look. You'll get a wave. We can tell if there's a tourist here. Everybody's really quick to help. And we may get into some of this, but whenever we have a challenge as a city, like our people really come together. Our people is our secret sauce and our strength. But the other part of that is we are the air capital of the world, and I think most people know us by that, but we've been working to be the opportunity capital. And we have so many people here that take advantage of whatever opportunity they can to be successful. So when you come here, you'll see a little bit of everything. People don't realize how many tech companies we have here in Wichita too. So it's a lot of good stuff here.
That. And like I said, I have met the people there, and I can definitely attest to that. And wow, the air capital, a tech hub, a lot's going on in Wichita. But I always say before you know a city, you want to get to know their leadership. So take it all the way back. What was childhood like? Did you always know you wanted to get into public service?
No. I think this is one of those, I tell young people, always keep all your doors open. Don't make decisions today that'll close a door for you tomorrow. This was not a door I ever thought about. I grew up single parent household. Parents got divorced at 3. And I had a bit of an anger issue when I was younger. So I met my mentor, Tommy Benford, and he actually, as an older brother, really walked me through consequences, what it looked like to think before you act, and really helped me to kind of get my mind together and be a better person. But he also forced me to do community service. And I say forced because as a kid, you want to wake up and eat your cereal and watch cartoons and have a good time. But I had to do neighborhood cleanups as being a part of this group that he had. After a while, you begin to see the impact that you make as a kid. So we're cleaning up a neighborhood park, getting glass out, other stuff. And then we got to paint the equipment back then. It stayed like that for years. I could go point to a park and say, I did that. And my handprint was on the slides. That really kind of started to build within me this need or want to give back. And he continued to do so, allowing me opportunities to do that. When I was 18, I became the program director for a summer job program, which was the same job program I was in at 14. And so I just started to build this whole life of I need to give back, just a little bit of what was given to me. I've had so many opportunities given to me from leadership in the community and other folks that I needed to give back. It was being an activist that led to me getting into politics. And that was around police reform. I was arrested at 19, essentially for First Amendment issues. I wasn't who I am now back then, so I didn't challenge it in the way that I would now. I think I could have won that case. Back then, they just kind of said police will target you, and it was true. And I just said, I'm not a fan of police at this point. And it took about a year. There were 3 Black officers I knew that poured into me and challenged me to do something about it on the positive side. or you can hate us. But if you hate us, you hate us as well. And so I didn't listen to that at first. But after a while, I got the point that if we could change policy, what happened to me may not happen to somebody else. So that really started my whole career as an activist, and always police reform. I got into foster care issues and supporting other activists. And over time, people would encourage me to think about running for office, in which honestly, I'm a guy in the background. I don't like my name on billboards and all that. So I was like, I'm not doing that. No interest. I just want to focus on these issues and go back and do my regular day job. But more people would say it. Some elected officials said it, our former mayor and one of our state senators, a former state rep, other folks in the community. But it was the neighborhood folks that really poured into me and just kept saying, you should do it. You should do it. And so at 29, I made my announcement. It was crazy, but I got a lot more support than I thought. And then ran that race and won. And I'm glad I did. You know, as an activist, you can work on one or two issues and maybe even see that through. And we did. All our law enforcement here in the city of Wichita has body cameras. I was a part of that group. The final group, people have been fighting for that for 20 years, but the final group that got it done, I was a part of that group. And man, you can get that win, but being on the council, you can do so much more, so many different reforms and make such a broad impact.
Wow, that is powerful. Two things jump out at me. And one, I hear so much, a mentor shifted your life and the trajectory of even getting into public service. We just had a panel this weekend. We reached out to young people to try to get them involved in public service. And the advice that was given is get a mentor, because, wow, what would life have been? And would you be sitting here across from me without that mentor that got you into the spirit of giving? So that's one. And then the second is how you took adversity. And while many people may say, what was me, may turn cold. And I'm sure there were times where you may have felt an array of emotions, but you took that and transmuted that into, I want to make a change. And the best way to make a change oftentimes you did both. Activism, getting out there, alerting people around the issues, but then also taking it a step further and going to policy. So I commend you. And I know this isn't about me, but I have to shout out this story quickly. I was interviewing a county commissioner in Multnomah County, Vince Jones Dixon, and his brother lost his life. And the police and the EMTs did nothing when he could have potentially been saved. They just let him on the ground. And he actually took that, and instead of just being angry and cold, he sat down with all the police officers, all the EMT staff, and then ran for commissioner and was able to make the changes necessary. So my brother, I just again want to commend you and people like you that are able to see that, because similar to what you said, there were people on the that were police officers that were saying you can't hate us because it's a collective. And I'm so glad for your community that you were able to take that and make a difference, because that's a lasting impact. Now, you've been on, I believe, since 2017 on the council. I want to take this two parts. So what were some of the priorities in 2017 of the council? And now in 2025, going into 26, what are some of the priorities now?
Yeah, 2017 was interesting. So my campaign wasn't a typical campaign. It was super grassroots. I had a lot of young people. I probably paid more attention than I should have to President Obama's first campaign, but I was like really pulled into that. And what I loved about it was the young people, the unconventional strategy, because I didn't know strategy back then, but listening to that 50 states strategy, going everywhere, friendly territory, non-friendly territory. So just having that in the back of my mind when I ran for office was interesting. So what I did before I even announced was I started going to different neighborhood meetings. So I knew my neighborhood, but I went around to every neighborhood in the district and just listened. I sit in the back. I got appointed to our district advisory board, so it wasn't weird for me to be there. And I was just listening to people's issues. So you'll see typical folks running for office, jobs, economy, all of that. But that sounds good to someone who's not paying a whole lot of attention. But somebody like me as an activist, I will push you to drill down to see, do you know what you're talking about? Or does somebody give you a boilerplate? And so by going to the neighborhoods, I had, I think, 117 meetings before I announced. So I went to all those meetings, every neighborhood, just about every neighborhood, different groups, different leaders, other activists, and just kind of what are the priorities here, and kind of synthesize that into my campaign. So when I ran, you'll see overall themes that look the same, but what we actually did was to the neighborhood level, talk about issues. So one of my opponents at a debate we had or forum just kept talking about the economy and jobs. Well, that neighborhood's top issue was loose dogs. So I talked about loose dogs. And I knew that from the house parties I had been to. And then when I talked about jobs, they, of course, wanted jobs, but they wanted better paying jobs and they wanted them in the neighborhood, not across town. So I was able to talk through what the neighbors wanted and what I intended to do. And as an activist, I didn't hear a lot I didn't agree with. So it wasn't like I was just saying it for them to hear it and vote for me. I meant what I said, and I was actually going to try to do that. And because it was a priority for them, my goal was to be a good council member, not like an activist that became council member and just focused on one thing. I wanted to represent everybody the best way. So that was what I did. Oddly, I even got folks who voted for Trump to support me. But it's because I would talk to them at the door, talk through issues, and kind of get to that granular level. So when my 2017's issues really were based on the neighborhood, I can generally say jobs, but again, a lot of folks wanted jobs that they could walk to, bike to, because we had over 100,000 driver's license suspensions in the city of Wichita, which we've got some state legislation working to kind of flip some of that. There was just fines and fees over time that really is a burden for folks. People want to go to work. A lot of people would get arrested going to work to make money to then go pay the fines and fees. And it was just a lot. So we were working on that. So we talked about jobs locally, better paying. We talked about neighborhood development because we didn't see a lot of investment in parts of District 1 and the parks and the sidewalks and the streets. District 1, parts of it didn't feel like it was a priority. The southern part of District 1, which was not majority Black, also wasn't getting a lot of love. There's a lot of poor folks there. And so I recognized the themes throughout the district and really tried to get District 1 deserves more investment. You hear that. I could break that down to every neighborhood because I talked to them. When we talked about the swimming pool, there's a historic Black park called McAdams Park. The city had just closed that swimming pool. That pool was designed by a world-renowned architect, Charles McAfee, who also designed the 1996 Olympic Stadium in Atlanta. So he was a part of that. He's here. He designed this pool, and it was kind of slated to get filled in. So I made it a key part of my campaign to fight for that. I didn't have the votes at the time, so I never told people I'd save it. I just said I'd fight for it. But I knew that strategically, there's ways you can fight. So you had those things. We talked about jobs, about neighborhood investment. We talked about public safety. As a police reform activist, mine was different than other people's. I wanted to support law enforcement. Those people put their lives on the line for us, but I wanted to make sure any bad cop was held accountable. And if every good cop hates a bad cop, they would help me. So we talk about that. We talked about neighborhood policing. That meant getting more officers out of vehicles and walking through these small businesses, not just driving through. So we talked through all of that, supporting fire. And those were those themes then, but it was always at a granular level. I could get really specific about what I was talking about. And then, of course, supporting the arts. I think arts are amazing. It makes any community better. And we have a lot of local talent, but there wasn't a lot of dollars allocated for that. And I wanted to see more Black and brown artists have opportunity throughout the city. At the time, a lot of the projects were some of the same firms, and it was cool, no knock to them, but it wasn't what it is now and some of the stuff that you see in Wichita. Today, our issues are homelessness. What can we do about that? But to me, that's still systemic. There's things you can do to really get at that. A lot of it, folks are one paycheck away from being homeless. Some of it is we don't have enough resources to save you from, if you're getting evicted from this space, getting you into another space. Our eviction laws here aren't the best in the state of Kansas. So if you're fighting somebody who has some vendetta against you as a tenant, they can evict you. You can't really go anywhere else. You have these arbitrary rules that they're not bad. You have to make 3 and 4 times the rent to get into these places. And some of them really want to make sure you can stay there and it won't be a burden on you. But if you're paying $950 a month to be in this terrible situation and you've been making those payments and you need to get out in some other place, you can make those same payments, even if it's less, $925, but they won't let you in because you don't make enough for them and their rules. You're just kind of stuck and then you may be homeless. So we have a lot of work to do around that. That's probably our number one issue. Right now, we're talking about property taxes. It's a challenge. The state didn't really pay in what they should have to reduce local property taxes, so we've got to work through that. And then crime really it's not what it was probably back then. We've made a lot of good investments pushing for violence interrupters. You see that in Baltimore with Mayor Scott. You see that in Chicago. I mean, Violence is coming down. We've made some real investments in community groups. Cure Violence is here in Wichita through Destination Innovation. So it's a lot of good happening there. A lot of it right now is, again, the homelessness. What does it look like going forward on the budget because of property taxes? People will say crime when you see something in the news, but overall, all the rates are down in Wichita. Nothing's up right now. And then past that, still development. How can we get our neighborhood development? We're moving a plan called Places for People that kind of puts nodes in communities, and you do that, you make it more walkable, bikeable to that node. At the center of that node is probably some business that, has folks come out, a restaurant, coffee shop, or several of those type of retail opportunities. And then you fix up everything around that. And then lastly, affordable housing. That's something, around the country, but we have more units being built. We're probably 20 to 30,000 short, and we need to make more of an investment in that.
Wow. First and foremost, I want to go back to your campaign. I know you said you may have listened to Obama too much, but I love that. I love the fact that when an opponent or somebody running for the same position was speaking on the macro level, you resonated because you had listened to the community. And I think when I think of a good council member, is somebody that listens, somebody that has an open door, somebody that isn't just going on talking points, is actually out in the community. So I can appreciate that. But then to the steps you took with public safety, neighborhood policing. I love that. It's not just about rolling through the streets. It's about being of the community. And people want to be safe. People want to be safe, but they want to feel like they're protected by people who reflect them and care about them. So I definitely tip my hat there. And then going to the new priorities, and we're definitely going to get into it. I sometimes call it the hot seat a little bit, but it's not a hot seat. But things I heard were jobs, homelessness, developing communities, and then affordable housing. These are things that, as you stated, across the United States are very important, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't get into the X's and O's with you. So I'd love to start with jobs. Can you kind of speak to either some legislation or things that you've seen in Wichita that have been able to provide jobs for community members?
Yeah. Before I do that, I do want to hit on when I talked about the Obama campaign. One strategic thing that I did, and I'm saying it because I know you have a good viewership, is we ignore conventional wisdom. So conventional wisdom tells you talk to the people who vote and only talk to them. And you hope that other people will get into that. I had been a field organizer for the Democratic Party in 2014, and I watched how that worked. And low turnout isn't good for anybody. So one of our goals was we want to expand the base. Well, that came from knowing that Obama ran a 50-state strategy. So I wanted to make sure that we hit every precinct in the district. And that was a goal. It wasn't just they vote over here and this is high turnout, or you may get a few over here. It was, how can I touch every part of this district? Because I will represent every part of the district. And I want to be able to know what I'm doing everywhere, who to talk to, who can help out. And so when the rest of our council elections that year was 8%, it was 13 in District 1. Because we went out and we talked to everybody. We talked to young people, folks who they'll tell you target certain doors. Once we got to a certain point in the campaign and we were coming around for our fourth touch, I started talking to everybody. So I'll knock on every door. Hey, not sure if you're voting this year. I'm running for city council. Is there, anything that's important to you? So I just wanted to make sure I say that. People may call it crazy, and it worked for me. But what I loved about it was I was able to talk to more people. Our campaign focused on more people. And you'll have these paid folks that'll tell you just talk to the people who vote. We did that, but we wanted to talk to everybody else. So that was key to me. And then the other thing you said about a mentor, I think everybody should have a mentor or several, and definitely check in with them because they can help keep you grounded and help like we did.
Unconventional or non-conventional wisdom, I think is smarter. Taking away the election aspect of it, you learned so much about your district, and you learned the priorities, whether somebody voted for you or not. You learned what the priorities were, and I'm sure over your long career, having that true understanding was worth its weight in gold. I'm sure it also helped though. If I have somebody come to my door and they're earnest and they're really trying to talk to me, I'll get off the couch and get down there. So
that was the story. There were people who would call their friends and say, yeah, Brandon Johnson was in my neighborhood. And literally I would be in 4 neighborhoods that day. Like, he was over here. Well, if he's out doing all that, I'm going to vote for Brandon.
Might as well.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that, because I hope uh, the municipal leaders that are watching the podcast definitely take that to heart, because at the very least you get more information at best, or additionally you get people more civically engaged that may have felt disenfranchised, or may not felt local government was touching their lives, but it really does. So thank you. I want to give back to the hot seat.
Yeah, yeah.
So jobs, that is something that is important everywhere, and everybody wants jobs, high quality jobs. What are some of the things that you've either enacted or seen play out over the 8 years that you've been in council?
Yeah, there's a few things. So I'll start with just things I supported, because our educational system is pretty cool on the secondary levels. We have Wichita, WSU Tech, Wichita State. So there's our university, then there's a tech component of it. They have been working to align educational courses with our manufacturing sector and other job sectors here. And so you can go into there and get some pretty affordable training. You might be looking at a $4,000 bill going through a maybe 12-week training course, and you're almost guaranteed a job on the other end of that. So if you're changing careers and you want to get into now Boeing's in Wichita, as of this week, it was Spirit Aerosystems, but they bought them. So every 737 fuselage in the world is made here in Wichita. So now Boeing's back, and if they have, certain job needs, WSU Tech will work with them on the training aspect, and then we'll get people trained, and then they go get a job. We do that for manufacturing, healthcare, other sectors. That alignment has been great. And then they've been working with the local school district as well to try to get juniors and seniors kind of on those job paths. So that gets you into some better paying jobs. And if you don't have a 4-year degree, although you make more with that, you can really slide into making 60, 70,000 a year here pretty quickly. So that's one major thing. So that's how you can get a job and get that training. And then we've kind of changed. So one of the things I did push for was changing our financial incentive packages to where instead of just incentivizing our major employers, we can give incentives to people who maybe won't spend 20 to 30 million on, creating jobs or some business. Maybe it's 5 million. Maybe instead of creating 30 jobs, they're creating 3 to 5 jobs. That's how you get down to the mom and pops. You get down to where we are as Black and brown folks. And that's still kind of high, but, we've significantly dropped it from what it was. So we've been supporting more businesses in that way. Was able to work with a young lady here, Christina Long, with the Create campaign. She's amazing. She's kind of business guru I go to. Anybody who gives me credit on business, got it from her, and I call her all the time. Working with her, get their headquarters in this abandoned, or not abandoned, the bank was closing, Commerce Bank, and worked out a deal where they donated it to them. So at the time, I think that was the only building that bank has ever donated throughout the country in a space like that. So they got that. They're in there. They help grow entrepreneurs. They do so many wonderful things. So connecting people with her, how they get resources. She even wrote a program for us. We had some funds from the sale of a Hyatt hotel, and I care about Eco Devo. I really want to see us be empowered in Eco Devo. And so kind of went to her and said, got $88,000. I want to do something to help provide access to capital. So she wrote out a whole program that we use now. It's called Propel. Low interest loan program. It's a revolving loan fund for the city. You can apply for up to $20,000 or $25,000, 3% interest paid back over 36 months. So if you have gaps in there, or you have to be in business for a year, but if you're essentially kind of still in that startup phase and you just need a little bit of help, this funding's for you. We've seen Black and brown businesses get started from that. The Trump administration has, they do them, but because of some of their rules, we have to take out some of our targets. So now it's just kind of a fund open for everybody, but it was started to try to attract more Black and brown businesses, female-owned businesses, to kind of get them going. That program has been great, and Christina is so amazing that she was even able to help us get another contribution from a local bank of $100,000 to add to it. So as the money comes in, we loan it back out, and that fund just keeps going to help people. And I'm hopeful in 3 years we can go back to kind of targeting where it should be and bridging some of those gaps. But that's been something. And then one of the things I think people sleep on is getting government contracts. And so we've kind of changed our processes and tried to make it easier for folks to get government contracts with the city of Wichita. And again, targeted same groups of people. and then just teaching them the process. This is how you apply. This is the type of insurance you need. Like all of those things as a part of it. We've seen an increase. We could see more, and hopefully we will at some point. But we've done those things, and then I tried to convene for a number of years, just any Black and brown investors with entrepreneurs, and just talk through, because I do believe in any lower income neighborhood and for any minority community, if you can get those small businesses going, the mom and pop stops, if somebody wants to open a clothing store or a small retail or something like that, you're creating 1 or 2 jobs, but that can be sustainable for some time. And that's how you clean up your neighborhood. So we've been having those conversations, trying to get more investment in that. Right now, still looking at different zones. We tried to take advantage of opportunity zones that wasn't written well, and it didn't work out for us. But those conversations led to now kind of looking at how do we develop these pieces of our community, and then how can we come in as a city with any tools to help that out.
Wow. First and foremost, like I love when asked about jobs, the first thing you said was education and the pathways there. I think sometimes that's glossed over by certain people, but it's so important. And when you can align your education system to the current jobs and to high paying jobs, and definitely non-traditional pathways, it sounds like you don't need a 4-year degree to be able to have a great job and a high paying job coming out of either a trade or a certificate program. So I love to hear that. And then access to capital. That is the name of the game, especially for Black and brown entrepreneurs. Often that access to capital, I won't say blocks, but it's sometimes just the faucet seems it's a little bit slower.
Too many hurdles to get it. And too many arbitrary rules. But
For
the
sure.
education is key. And I got some blowback on this, and I keep saying it no matter what, but my story is real, and I think it's real for a lot of folks. So when I talk about certificates and getting that training, I don't say it as that's your only path to education, but I have been a critic to say we talk about 4-year degrees too much. And for people who are like me, if I'm not paying attention, I'm not going to get good grades, but I can go get a certificate. So right now, I still owe about $50,000 in student loans. The same time I went to college playing football, trying to make it big, I had a friend who didn't want to go to school ever again, but took a course, got a certificate, started making about $65,000 immediately, and I'm going to college. Well, when he did want to go get his 4-year degree later, he did it debt free. He was making enough money. He had a family. Now you got 2 incomes. And he's like, I'm going to go back to school. He could pay for it cash. Then he graduates with the degree, still making good money. Now he's making better money, and I'm still in debt. So if you want to go get a certificate or anything like that, I think you should, and go make your money. And then that frees you up with the freedom to say, I do want to go back to school. Even with educational costs being high, you don't need to take out those loans. You make enough. Or if you do want to take out a loan, you don't have to take out as much because you make enough money to pay for it. So trying to make some money immediately gives you that pathway to go get your 4-year degree, or go get your master's, or go get your PhD, but you're in a better financial situation if you go get that job now with that certificate and then work on your education later. And that's what I keep saying, even kids with behavioral issues, if they can't go to public school, can they go get a certificate? And can we get somebody to mentor them and work on some of the behavioral skills so you can go get that job? And then once you go get that job and you say, I want more out of life, then go get your 4-year degree, but you already kind of know what it takes to get a certificate. So then you can go get that degree. We don't talk about that enough. And we need more people in the middle class, the trades and all of that, because those jobs really aren't going anywhere. They may transfer, but it's good money and we shouldn't look down on it. And you can go get your degree later and have the money to pay for it.
Sure. And I'm a big proponent of that. Like, I think we were not sold a dream, but we were just told that there's one pathway that you need to do, which is the access to the middle class and to upward mobility after that. But I do think the pendulum is swinging now. I think, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they understand that's the student loan situation that we have in America is not changing, and the ROI is not what it used to be. So I do think that pendulum is changing, and then also with trades, you're able to serve your community in a way that sometimes with professional services jobs, like you just can't do that in your own community. So I'm definitely a proponent of that, and I appreciate that you are preaching that, especially from in an elected position. So people see that it's not just, they're hearing it on TikTok. It's somebody that's literally leading the city, being a proponent of that. So I appreciate that there. And then hearkening back to one of the things you said is when you touch people and you listen to people that may or may not vote. The next population of people that I want to talk about, sometimes politicians can kind of skirt around it. And this population of people sometimes does, sometimes not, doesn't always vote. But the unhoused population you brought up, what are you guys doing, or what have you seen done, or policies that have been put in place for that community?
Yeah, we got to do more. I'll start with that. We've made some good steps here, but we have to do more. I've seen that situation get worse in some ways, but again, it's just so complex. I think folks folks judge unhoused people too often. I don't think they see themselves there, but again, one paycheck away, and then they get the stigma of drug abuse. And I think people really just have to center themselves and try to think about what that's like. How would you feel if you became homeless? Maybe you are somebody who doesn't have an addictive personality, or maybe you do, but you have an opportunity to have a drink to kind of, calm yourself, soothe yourself. And then after a while, you just keep drinking. Why are we looking down on somebody like that? When if we can change their circumstance, maybe we can change that behavior or that habit. Some of the mental health issues that some of them have, not all of them, because they get the stigma, they all have it, comes from being depressed from everything that happened. Or maybe they did end up taking some drugs that were bad, or they just took too many of them and now they have some challenges they have to work through. So part of that challenge is seeing them for being human. And then how do we address these humans? So once you acknowledge that you have those humans, how do we deal with them in a humane way? Keeping their belongings together. Sometimes, if they've lost everything, but they have a little dirty stuffed animal and maybe it smells, but that's all they have. And that's their only attachment to the life they used to have. How can we handle those things with compassion? And it takes compassion to deal with anybody who's unhoused, whether it's been one day or 10 years. So those are things I think that everybody should be aware of and think about. For us, we have some groups of compassionate people. We have our United Way Continuum of Care, which gets federal funding, lots of organizations coming together to help out. But we have our Continuum of Care here, and there's a lot of organizations that come together to serve the population. So you have folks who will issue vouchers. You have people we've got navigators now as we're working through it. The city just put millions of dollars into building a multi-agency center. So that's one space kind of modeled off of Haven of Hope in San Antonio, where you have a shelter, where you have service providers. Our county departments are coming in there. So everyone's working together, and we just broke ground yesterday to build transitional housing. So all of this is still kind of under construction, so it's not working perfectly just yet. We still got a lot of kinks to work in there, but again, a space where if you're unhoused, you don't have to go across town to talk to somebody else. You can literally go into this one space and start getting those services there. Try to get any rehab opportunities that you might need. But again, we need more funding for that. And our state's not putting in enough money. They need to. Right now, it's just the city leading the way. And we take in a lot more of the unhoused population from around the state because we have so many resources. And I've argued that instead of having somebody travel to us, walking, biking, or catching a bus to Wichita, we should have these types of facilities around the state so people can stay closer to where home is, get the resources they need and the help that they need, and then kind of start roots there being successful. So we are doing that. We've been investing a lot of our federal dollars in that, some local dollars. We have a potential sales tax that council just voted on to go to the ballot. Now, next week, we'll see if we can make it get to the ballot. But if the citizens approve it, then millions more dollars will go into funding our homeless services. There will be an endowment of $125 million that the interest will pay for the operation of the center, and then get more partners in there, again, more transitional housing, and then try to make sure everybody's on the same page, going in the same direction to help out. So we've taken some real good steps, but we need to do more. And I think we, again, need to continue to lead with compassion sometimes elected folks will get in there and talk about, well, I saw somebody sleeping under a bridge. Like, well, did you help them? Did you give them any direction to go over here to this campus? Or are you just looking at them and saying these different things? And I think the last thing I would say on that, other than what we're doing, is just I always try to acknowledge any homeless person I see. Too often, I think we get in the, I don't want to talk to them or you, or they're just going to ask for money. Well, if they ask for money, so what? I mean, if you don't have it, you don't have it. But I've noticed one day I was leaving a meeting about to cross the street, and there was a gentleman on the bench, and he was just sitting there quiet. He didn't think I'd say anything. And I said, "How you doing? Weather's nice today. It was a cool day. It wasn't too cold." And he was like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm here from California. I was on my way to try to see some family, and they didn't want to talk to me. So I'm just here." He had, a blanket and some stuff. And we talked for a little bit, found out he was a veteran. So I was able to get him in contact with somebody to try to get him over to the VA. But, you never know what stories you'll hear. And it's always a reminder to me that, I could be there one day. It may not always be me on this side. So, if we just acknowledge people's humanity, I think we'll all be better off.
I think that is the heart of it, and that's how you started. Actually, speaking of that, the humanity. These are humans. They're going through a transitional period, and you listed a lot of things that can happen. One thing that is happening more and more with rising healthcare costs. You are one bad situation, one healthcare bill that can throw off your entire trajectory or your net normal. So I think what you've said, existing and seeing the humanity in people, is important too. And the same way, at the very least, and my mom always taught me this: you say hello, how you doing, and that's no matter who they are, whether it's the CEO of your company or somebody that is just trying to make it, just acknowledging people as humans. The other things I heard there were wraparound services, which I think is so important to make sure that people can become unhoused for many different reasons, but helping to address those. And then I think of it as you need a place to stay for a night. But then you look forward and you need transitional housing. And then how does that transitional housing then turn into to long-term housing? It sounds like you guys are really trying your best. I hope that piece of legislation comes through and you guys are able to endow that center properly, especially as it sounds like you guys are a quote unquote beacon on the hill for a lot of people in Kansas that are unhoused and making their way to Wichita. So I definitely hope for the best there. And that dovetails especially well into the next thing that I wanted to address. You go from transitional housing to long-term housing, and that housing has to be affordable, attainable, whatever way you want to address it. I know people can say it's politically charged, but at the heart of it, we want to make sure that people can afford to live in Wichita. And on that, I'd love to hear some of the issues that you're seeing or challenges, because people say there is a housing crisis across the United States, but it looks different everywhere. Certain places they're too dense and they don't have land, or certain places they can't bring into the development, or certain places they have to address the blight issues first. So what does the housing situation look like in Wichita, and then what are you guys kind of doing to make sure that people have attainable and affordable housing?
Yeah, our situation is all of the above. I think that's what we talked about before, but yeah, you have a housing stock that is probably aged, hasn't been invested in. So, it's going to take some funds to invest in those. Some of those are habitable, some of those are not. We've got a lot of empty lots, less now because of the work of Habitat for Humanity and Mennonite Housing here in Wichita. And then we just don't have enough affordable units. And affordable for us, Wichita, as you'll see from some studies or surveys, will show that we are a super affordable city, but that doesn't mean that we're always affordable for the folks who are here, because some employers like to use that information to say, we won't pay you more. We'll keep your wages down, which again, that's a conflict and a conversation for another day. But so when you have not enough units, so we got into, I think everybody was here after the pandemic. There was a housing shortage. Houses were going for 30, 40,000 more than what they were worth. Somebody would just say, I'll just pay it. I need a house, and there's not many out there. So you had that, and that huge artificial inflation of prices and values. And then you have not enough housing stock after that, or it's not in quality shape. So you may find a house that you might see that's $30,000 to $40,000, but it may need $150,000 worth of work to get it back to where it needs to be. So you have those. Some of that then becomes blight. And so we have to decide whether we'll get those houses torn down, or if somebody's truly willing to invest. Those are sometimes heartbreaking, because you'll have somebody who, this is a family house, but they don't have the money to fix it up. and they don't have the access to capital, and you give them break after break, but they can never find a way to do it without potentially selling that house. And you have to vote to tear it down. It really is a danger and risk to the neighborhood. So those are tough. But on affordability, it's the cost of building it versus the cost that you want to sell it. And since housing prices to build have gone up, there's a gap there. Affordable housing for us is how do we fill that gap? And we did some of that with COVID dollars that we received. We had a housing fund. If a developer went in to fix up a house, we'd offer $40,000 or up to $40,000 so that they could keep the home sale price down. For folks who were renting, there was, dollars available to try to fix those houses up. But the goal was always to keep the final price down for anybody who was looking to buy. That's probably the biggest issue in affordable housing. And some of that's renovation, some of that's built new as well. So that gap piece is something that we've looked at. We're talking about doing that as well in the sales tax. Can we get some funds available to fill more gaps, maybe acquire some land and offer that to folks who will actually build on it quickly to put more families in homes? That's a big deal. And then some of this other conversation is about folks. This is a free market society. Capitalism is king, but how much profit do you have to make? And some of the conversation we've had, and when we're seeing new groups of developers now that don't care about that higher profit margin. If you want to make 8-9% on your house that you sell, that you built, I get it. This is America, make your money. But if we have a need and you can meet that need, but you end up only taking 4%, are you willing to do so? And we didn't see that for a while, but now there's new groups of developers who are like, we want to meet the need. And to me, financially, it just makes sense. So if you're building like apartments and you know that we've been saying as a council, and you've been hearing me really loud talk about, I want to see 1,000 and under, 1,000 a month and under for whatever it is, a studio, not really a studio, but a 1-bedroom. A studio I think should be less, but we've been talking about $1,000. So then you get groups that are saying, okay, we'll build all of these studio and 1-bedrooms. We'll keep it at 1,000, maybe 1,100 for the 1-bedroom, but we need help on the gap. So we do that, and then they commit to keeping it there. Just given the market, it's going to stay full. So you're never going to have vacant units if you can keep it there. So in the long term, you'll make your money. If you put it at 1,500, you may stay full, but you may have some time where you don't have an occupant. But the whole time you'll have tenants if you keep it at 1,000 and under, because that's where people are at. And honestly, if you get down to 750, for sure, you'll have a waiting list. And so I think that's starting to pencil out for some people to understand that. And a lot of their goal is let's do new build, because some of these other older apartment complexes are in bad shape. So we can get new build and keep the costs down, and they make agreements with the council to keep those costs down at least 10, 15 years. I think that's a win, because you get a new building, they'll keep it up, people can afford to live there, and those are in great locations, the ones that are going up right now. And oftentimes these folks don't care about that higher profit margin. That really is a thing. And I get it. You're an expert. You've been building houses. You want to make your money. Again, I don't knock that. But if we want to serve a need of the community, sometimes you got to do these other projects. But I'm glad that we're seeing people shift into that. And then the last thing I think is the housing choice voucher, or Section 8. That's a challenge here in Wichita and in Kansas, because you can discriminate against that. And I know that there are things on the landlord side, and I've learned this the hard way through what we were trying to do to help tenants, but it did pass. But landlords will talk about all the requirements that come with Section 8, whether it's ADA accessibility and all of that. So I get those things. But if we have a waiting list, and we've been at a point where we had almost a 3-year waiting list on vouchers because we didn't have enough people who would take people who had those vouchers. Some of it was those actual costs of fixing the property up. But some of the other stuff was they just had a negative view of people who were on housing choice vouchers, which I think is a shame. One negative experience shouldn't shape how you see a whole group of people. And also, if you keep getting groups of people like that, what are you doing to vet your tenant and talk through expectations of this property? So I think it goes both ways on that. But there's a lot of complexities to affordable housing affordability, those gaps in there, costs of renovation. I think every city does it differently. I think Detroit had the opposite problem. I think they had too many properties, but many of them were blighted, and they came up with some program, I think, to buy properties and then sell them to people and get the neighbors to fix them up. I think we all deal with it differently, but Wichita's is kind of the ones I just shared.
I appreciate that. And the one thing I really appreciate is your candor. there's typically no silver, quote unquote, silver bullet, magic bullet for affordable housing and making things affordable. But like I said, I told you before we got started, like I tried to talk to the other side of the equation and say like, okay, what are the creative things that you guys would need to make some of these deals pencil? And one of the things that you brought up is there's a million different things that can be done, but at the end of the day, you have to kind of go in knowing that the profit margin on market rate in the heart of downtown may be one thing, but if you're willing to maybe take that profit margin down a little bit, you can effectuate so much change. And then from the economic standpoint, you have, especially with apartments, you have that wait list, you have the people that are there, but the bigger part of that is you're truly helping communities. Wow.
And what you just said, though, it's talking to the other side. I think too often, and I get accused of this today, and anybody from Wichita who sees it or feels this way about me will probably frown at this point, but we just kind of demonize developers too much. And sometimes you got to talk to the developers to see what are their challenges, what's going on. Not all of them care. Like there's developers here I've met with that could care less about Northeast Wichita, where we live at. But there's also some who do. But I've learned from each one of them the challenges, even through their perceptions, what that might look like. And it makes me better at advocating. If you say that our part of town is more dangerous, I can show you the police statistics to show it's probably safer than other parts of town. If you say that, one of the developers said something about us not appreciating things, and I asked what they did, and what they had was a poor product. Well, of course we don't appreciate that. We want quality. So when you talk to a developer, that's how I learned about the gaps. That's how I learned about the cost of these things. So one of the things that's not finalized yet that we are doing is, with that in mind, I went to groups of developers, small and large, and just said, hey, talk to our Eco Devo team and you tell them everything you want from us to make your job easier and to build these units. And if we can compile that and then have a policy discussion as a council to see, is this realistic? Is it not? Will this work? Can we do a pilot? Let's see what happens. If these groups said they'll do it like this, and this is a policy that we're good with, let's enact it, let's do a pilot, and let's see what happens. Will they actually build these things, and can we make this work? Whether that's property tax incentives, whether that's sales tax incentives, whatever it might be. And so we've got several groups of landlords and developers that have been submitting information. I was hoping to have that policy discussion before I'm out of office, but it's setting up well for next year so the council can consider, okay, if this is what you're saying that you need, let's work with y'all to get this going. And if we continue to demonize the people who actually have the access to capital to build, or who can come together and do that, why would they do it? People don't like being demonized on social media or during a political campaign. So I think we got to be careful about that. And if we can sit down and talk about this stuff, then we can make something work.
I think that's so smart, and it is, and that's why I hated, even when I was saying, I was like, the other side of the equation, that even made like a false dichotomy that doesn't need to exist. Like I even hated it when I was saying it, because even the person I spoke to, I know his heart and he wants to help. He was kind of discussing like creative ways. So I'm excited to tell him places like Wichita are listening to the development community and aren't demonizing. And there are certain situations where that population of people needs to be demonized, and I've seen that in my day job at times. So yeah, everything's not always as black and white as we want it to be, and that's probably for the best. And with that, I do have 2 more questions, but you are officially off the hot seat. This next question, if you can stay with me in this land. So you have unlimited budget, unlimited staff, unlimited time, unlimited whatever you need. But if you can just like snap your fingers and make a change to one challenge, what would that challenge be?
Man, that's a really good question. Probably providing decent housing, because it matters where you work. Sometimes matters where you go to school, but in order to perform in both, you got to have quality housing. So addressing that would probably be the one thing I would do.
Get that effectuates so many different of the major priorities that you brought up. Anything from education to the unhoused community to affordable housing. Just addressing those housing issues can truly effectuate change with all. And then my final question, so this is 25 years from now, what are the people of Wichita saying about their community?
If we do it all right, they are saying that this is probably the best place to work, live, play, grow a family, and that we actually care about our community in the sense of we've made strategic investments in neighborhoods and housing to give us something to do for us and not to grow our city for everyone else. But I've continued to say we need to invest in us. And this past weekend, we had the ribbon cutting for the project I worked on for 5 years, the Carl G. Brewer Community Center, named after our first elected Black mayor who passed in 2020. And oddly, it was a few months after that when the opportunity came to me from one of our local philanthropists, president of Fidelity Bank, Aaron Bastian, and they provided a $10 million no-interest loan to make this happen. And so when you step into this place, everyone was just blown away. I mean, it was truly what I hoped it would be and more. It's full of cultural art, kente cloth walls, images of Mayor Brewer in his lifetime. We had Ghanaian artists working with local artists. Larry Poncho Brown from Baltimore was one of the lead artists. When you walk in there, it is culturally us. You can feel it, you can see it. And I think we need to do more of that. And it's brand new. It went from 12,000 square feet to 38,000 square feet. If we do everything right in 25 years, we'll have more of those. We'll have more quality parks. We'll have sidewalks in neighborhoods that don't have them. We'll have our protected bike lanes. It'll be a space where you're just as excited to go to work as you are to get back into your neighborhood and enjoy life.
And that's what we want to see. You stated a place where you can work, play, live, and then culture. I think that often is overlooked, but you think of Wichita as the city, but I like to think of Wichita, the community, and what ties the community, the culture. And it's so important. And I'm glad that was one of the things you put out there. And then also I'm a a young father, or I guess millennial father, and like that park space and just having that is so important to everything I want to do. I want my son to be outside. I want my family to be outside. So those are all great things. And with leadership like yourself, I know in 25 years, Wichita will be the standard bearer in Kansas. So Brandon, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. The insights that I learned from our first conversation to the insights now, I appreciate. And I'm very thankful for your time. So I wanted to just first thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I appreciate what you're doing. Check out other episodes. I think this is valuable for anyone who cares about anything local government and the things that we do. We're all humans and we have different passions. And I think this is definitely good. So I appreciate you for doing that and making this a mission of yours.
And then to the viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the Jentry Podcast. And again, our guest was Brandon Johnson, council member for Wichita, Kansas, representing District 1. So thank you so much and have a great one.
Thank you.